Hey guys, welcome to Read Aloud for October 13th, day 22. Alright, I'm going to practice some of my new jazz chords. They're a little bit different, and so it's hard for me to adjust to it, but I think I'm getting the hang of it. And the thing is, you just got to practice. So let's see, here we go. So it's like a B minor, but with See, this is the hard part, getting back to it, because my fingers aren't used to it. Oops. Alright, just got to practice. Doesn't sound bad. I started practicing the jazz chords last night, so just got to keep it up. Here we go. Where were we? Yes, Bjorn's house. Oh yeah, I was singing. Okay. Bilbo began to nod again. Suddenly up stood Gandalf. "It is time for us to sleep," he said. "For us, but not, I think, for Bjorn. In this hall we can rest safe and sound, but I warn you all not to forget what Bjorn said before he left us. You must not stray outside until the sun is up, on your own peril." Bilbo found that beds had already been laid at the side of the hall, on a sort of raised platform between the pillars and the outer wall. For him, there was a little mattress of straw and woolen blankets. He snuggled into them very gladly, summertime though it was. The fire burned low and he fell asleep. Yet in the night he woke, and the fire had now sunk to a few embers. The dwarves and Gandalf were all asleep. To judge by their breathing, a splash of white on the floor came from the high moon, which was peering down through the smoke hole in the roof. There was a growling sound outside, and a noise as if some great animal scuffling at the door. Bilbo wondered what it was, and whether it could be Bjorn in the enchanted shape, and if he would come in as a bear and kill them. He dived under the blankets and hid his head, and fell asleep again at last in spite of his fears. It was morning when he awoke. One of the dwarves had fallen over him in the shadows where he lay, and had rolled down with a bump from the platform on the floor. It was Bofur, and he was grumbling about it when Bilbo opened his eyes. "Get up, lazy bones," he said, "or there will be no breakfast left for you." Up jumped Bilbo. "Breakfast," he cried. "Where's breakfast?" "Mostly inside of us," answered the other dwarves who were moving about the hall, "but what is left is out on the veranda. We've been about looking for Bjorn ever since the sun got up, but there is no sign of him anywhere, though we found breakfast laid as soon as we were out." "Where is Gandalf?" asked Bilbo, moving off to find something to eat as quick as he could. "Oh, out and about somewhere," they told him, but he saw no sign of the wizard all that day until the evening. Just before sunset, he walked into the hall where the Hobbit and the dwarves were having supper, waited on by Bjorn's wonderful animals, and as they'd been all day. Of Bjorn they had seen and heard nothing since the night before, and they were getting puzzled. "Where is our host, and where have you been all day yourself?" they all cried. "One question at a time, and none till after supper. I haven't had a bite since breakfast." At last Gandalf pushed away his plate and jug. He had eaten 2 whole loaves with masses of butter and honey and clotted cream, and drunk at least a quart of mead, and he took out his pipe. "I will answer the second question first," he said, "but bless me, this is a splendid place for smoke rings." Indeed, for a long time they could get nothing more out of him. He was so busy sending smoke rings, dodging around the pillars of the hall, changing them into all sorts of different shapes and colors, and setting them at last, chasing one another out of the hole in the roof. They must have looked very queer from the outside, popping out into the air one after another. Green, blue, red, silver, gray, yellow, white, big ones, little ones dodging through big ones and joining into figure eights and going off like a flock of birds in the distance. "I have been picking out bear tracks," he said at last. "There must have been regular bears meeting outside here last night. I soon saw that Bjorn could not have made them all. There were far too many of them, and they were of various sizes too. I should say there were little bears, large bears, ordinary bears, and gigantic big bears, all dancing outside from dark till nearly dawn. They came from almost every direction except from the west over the river from the mountains. In that direction, only one set of footprints led, none coming, only one going away from here. I followed these as far as the Carrack. There they disappeared into the river, but the water was too deep and strong beyond the rock for me to cross. It is easy enough, as you remember, to get from this bank to the Carrack by the ford, but on the other side is a cliff standing up from a swirling channel. I had to walk miles before I found a place where the river was wide and shallow enough for me to wade and swim, and then miles back again to pick up the tracks again. By that time it was too late for me to follow them far. They went straight off in the direction of the pine woods on the east side of the Misty Mountains, where we had our pleasant little party with the wargs the night before last. And now I think I have answered your first question too, ended Gandalf, and he sat a long while silent. Bilbo thought he knew what the wizard meant. What shall we do? He cried. If he leads all the wargs and goblins down here, we shall all be caught and killed. I thought you said he was not a friend of theirs. So I did, and don't be silly. You had better go to bed. Your wits are sleepy. The hobbit felt quite crushed. As there seemed nothing else to do, he did go to bed, and while the dwarves were still singing songs, and he dropped to sleep, still puzzling his little head about Bjorn, till he dreamed a dream of hundreds of black bears dancing slow, heavy dances round and round in the moonlight in the courtyard. Then he woke up when everyone else was asleep, and he heard the same scraping, scuffling, snuffling, and growling as before. Next morning they were all wakened by Bjorn himself. So here you all are still, he said. He picked up the hobbit and laughed. Not eaten up by wargs or goblins or wicked bears yet, I see. And he poked Mr. Baggins' waistcoat most disrespectfully. Little bunny's getting nice and fat again on bread and honey, he chuckled. Come and have some more. So they all went to breakfast with him. Bjorn was most jolly for a change. Indeed, he seemed to be in a splendidly good humor and set them all laughing with his funny stories. Nor did they have to wonder long where he had been or why he was so nice to them, for he told them himself. He had been over the river and right back up into the mountains, from which you can guess that he could travel quickly, in bear shape at any rate. From the burnt wolf glade, he soon found out that part of their story was true, but he had found out more than that. He caught a warg and a goblin wandering in the woods, and from these he got news. The goblin patrols were still hunting with wargs for the dwarves, and they were fiercely angry because of the death of the great goblin, and also because of the burning of the chief wolf's nose and the death from the wizard's fire of many of their chief servants. So much they told him when he forced them, but he guessed there was more wickedness than this afoot, and that a great raid of the whole goblin army with their wolf allies into the land shadowed by the mountains might soon be made to find the dwarves, or to take vengeance on men and creatures that lived there, who thought they might be sheltering them. It was a good story, that of yours, said Bjorn, but I like it still better now. I am sure it is true. You must forgive me for not taking your word. If you lived near the edge of Mirkwood, you would take the word of no one that you did not know as well as your brother, or better. As it is, I can only say that I have hurried home as fast as I could to see that you were safe, and to offer you any help that I can. I shall think more kindly of dwarves after this. Killed the great goblin, he chuckled fiercely to himself. What did you do with the goblin and the warg? Asked Bilbo suddenly. Come and see, said Bjorn, and they followed round the house. A goblin's head was stuck outside the gate, and a warg skin was nailed to a tree just beyond. Bjorn was a fierce enemy, but now he was their friend, and Gandalf thought it wise to tell them their whole story and the reason of their journey, so that they could get the most help he could offer. This is what he promised to do for them. He would provide ponies for each of them and a horse for Gandalf for their journey to the forest, and he would lade them with food to last them for weeks with care, and packed so as to be easy as possible to carry: nuts, flowers, sealed jars of dried fruits, and red earthenware pots of honey, twice-baked cakes that would keep for a good long time, and on a little of which they could march far. The making of these was one of his secrets, but honey was in them, and in most of his foods, and they were good to eat, though they made one thirsty. Water, he said, they would not need to carry this side of the forest, for there were streams and springs along the road. But your way through Mirkwood is dark and dangerous and difficult, he said. Water is not easy to find there, nor food. The time has not yet come for nuts, though it may be past and gone indeed before you get to the other side. And nuts are about all that grows there fit for food. In there the wild things are dark, queer, and savage. I will provide you with skins for carrying water, and I will give you some bows and arrows, but I doubt very much whether anything you find in Mirkwood will be wholesome to eat or to drink. There is one stream, though, there, I know, black and strong, which crosses the path, that you should neither drink of nor bathe in, for I have heard that it carries enchantment and a great drowsiness and forgetfulness. And in the dim shadows of that place, I don't think you will shoot anything, wholesome or unwholesome, without straying from the path. That you must not do for any reason. That is all the advice I can give you. Beyond the edge of the forest, I cannot help you much. You must depend on your luck and your courage and the food I send with you. At the gate of the forest, I must ask you to send back my horse and my ponies, but I wish you all speed, and my house is open to you if you ever come back this way again. I think that's a good place to stop. All right, thanks guys.